You wouldn't notice her if she passed you on the street. Alana Brooks moved like a whisper, neat, disciplined, always a few steps behind the noise. She was the kind of woman who didn't make waves, didn't raise her voice, didn't ask for more than what life allowed. At 32, she had become the model correctional officer at Southgate Correctional Facility, a cold stretch of gray concrete and razor wire carved into the red dirt of Georgia. No complaints, no infractions, not even a sick day unless absolutely necessary. She clocked in before dawn, clocked out after dark, and spent most nights with no one but silence to keep her company. To the outside world, she was everything the system wanted: reliable, controlled, incorruptible. But inside was a woman trying to stitch together the jagged pieces of a heart that had been broken more than once. 2 years ago, she'd left her marriage with nothing but a single suitcase, her department-issued badge, and her mother's old Bible. The final straw had come not with a scream, but with a text, an anonymous message containing a blurry photo. Her husband, Jordan, arms wrapped around another woman, smiling, laughing, standing outside a hotel that wasn't theirs. Alana didn't fight. She didn't beg. She just stopped. Stopped hoping. Stopped trusting. Stopped pretending. The divorce was quick, almost too easy. Jordan didn't contest anything, didn't even bother to apologize. It was as if she'd never existed in his life. Just a deleted line in a long, forgettable story. But the betrayal didn't just end their marriage. It hollowed her. She pulled away from friends, deleted her social media, ignored every invitation to birthdays, baby showers, and holidays. She became a ghost, a professional one. But the truth? Alana had always known loss. Long before the divorce, back when she was just 24, she'd been pregnant, only a few weeks in when the accident happened. A stormy afternoon, a slick stretch of highway, a car spinning across lanes like a leaf in the wind. She survived. The baby didn't. It wasn't something she talked about. Not with her coworkers. Not even with Simone, her younger sister who had tried again and again to pull her back to the surface. That loss, the quiet one, stuck to her like mist. It followed her into grocery stores, where she'd pause in front of the baby aisle, fingers brushing tiny socks she'd never need. It lived in her Bible, tucked behind the back cover, in the form of a folded sonogram photo that she could never bring herself to throw away. That picture was the only reason she hadn't tossed the Bible after the divorce. It reminded her she'd once carried life, that she hadn't always been empty. So no, Alana wasn't looking for love. She wasn't even looking for comfort. She was surviving. Every day at Southgate was the same. Metal detectors, concrete halls, cold-eyed inmates, and a clock that never moved fast enough. She kept her uniform pressed, her boots polished, her reports spotless. She followed protocol to the letter and wrote up anyone who didn't. And if the others laughed behind her back, called her Ice Queen or Sarge Jr., she didn't care. At least rules made sense. Order kept her safe. The prison was overcrowded, underfunded, and crawling with tension. But for Alana, it was predictable, controlled. It was the one place in her life where she knew the boundaries, where she didn't have to feel anything. Until he looked at her. It happened in the prison library. A simple Tuesday afternoon. The kind where fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the air smelled faintly of dust and disinfectant. She was there for routine checks, walkthroughs, inventory logs, the usual. And then their eyes met. Malik Carter, inmate number 342019, age 29, convicted of aggravated assault and firearm possession. 12-year sentence. Kitchen duty rotation. Library access. But paperwork didn't tell you everything. It didn't mention the way he carried himself. Calm, quiet, unshaken. It didn't describe the steadiness in his eyes or the surprising softness in the way he helped another inmate read through legal paperwork, line by line, with real patience. Alana paused for just a moment too long, and that was her first mistake. There was nothing special about that first glance. No music, no lightning bolt, just a moment, fleeting, when her eyes met his and something shifted deep in her chest. She told herself it was nothing. A routine inspection. Just another inmate. Another face in a sea of khaki jumpsuits. But the truth was she remembered his eyes. Malik Carter didn't stare the way most inmates did. There was no leer, no smirk, no bravado. Only stillness. Awareness. Like he saw her, really saw her. At first, Alana avoided him. Told herself she was being ridiculous. But over the next few weeks, their paths crossed again. And again. In the library. In the chow hall. In a laundry corridor when she came to inspect the water line leak. And each time a nod. A glance. A few seconds too long. Until those seconds turned into conversations. It started with small talk. How's the kitchen rotation? Any updates on your appeal? Stay out of trouble, Carter. Harmless. But there was something about the way Malik listened. Really listened. He never interrupted. Never flirted. He just paid attention. In a place where most men shouted over each other, where survival meant noise and dominance, Malik's silence was different. It was comforting. Intoxicating even. She started passing his unit more often. Lingering a little longer during head counts. Volunteering for late shifts that overlapped with his kitchen duty. She told herself it was coincidence, that she was just being thorough. But that was a lie. It wasn't long before her heart began to betray her. The subtle flutter when she caught him glancing her way. The way her skin burned when their fingers brushed over a food tray, just for a second too long. And Malik? He never pushed, never crossed the line. But his presence, it was magnetic. The man had depth, intelligence, stillness. And God help her. He made her feel human again. She hadn't felt that in years. Not since the days when she used to pack Jordan's lunches. When she used to daydream about a backyard, a swing set, and a little hand holding hers. That woman was gone. Or so she thought. Because Malik Carter, inmate, convicted felon, forgotten by the world, had somehow unearthed the part of her she'd buried a long time ago. Her co-workers didn't suspect a thing. Why would they? Officer Alana Brooks was the rulebook. She wrote people up for having untied shoelaces, for God's sake. And Southgate was a disaster. Understaffed, overworked, stretched thin. No one was watching the quiet ones. Until one night, a security light blew out in the East Wing. Routine maintenance, nothing unusual. But instead of calling it in, Alana made a detour. Down a narrow hallway, past the unused supply racks, to the storage room behind the industrial freezers. He was already there, waiting. They didn't speak, didn't need to. The moment their eyes met in that dim space, the air between them thick with tension and longing, they knew. The rules didn't matter anymore. And in that silence, surrounded by steel and shadows, everything changed. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was desperate, raw, real. And afterward, she stood against the wall, hands trembling, her breath shallow. Malik stepped back, eyes searching hers, but said nothing. She left without a word. That night, she sat in her apartment for hours, staring at the wall, the Bible, the sonogram tucked inside. She told herself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. It would never happen again. But secrets grow teeth, especially inside places like Southgate. And Alana Brooks was about to learn just how sharp those teeth could be. Because when the heart has been starving for years, it doesn't stop at one bite. It wants more. It wants everything. And in the days that followed, she went back. Again and again. She told herself it was just that one time. That she'd burned her hand on a flame, and now she knew better. But the heart, the heart doesn't care about rules, or uniforms, or prison bars. It cares about warmth, about being seen, about feeling alive. And for the first time in years, Alana Brooks felt alive. It began again slowly. A glance across the chow hall. A tray passed too gently. A brief stop in an empty corridor, just long enough to feel his breath on her skin. Every time she said it would be the last. But the moments kept coming. Hidden corners. After-hour silence. Empty break rooms lit only by the flicker of a vending machine light. Each encounter was risky, brief, electric, and afterward, she would sit in her car with the engine off, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white, trying to remember who she used to be. But that version of herself, she was gone. Long gone. Malik never asked for more, never pushed, never threatened to expose her. That made it worse. Because he didn't need to demand anything. She gave it willingly. Then came the morning, everything cracked wide open. She woke before her alarm, a dull ache in her lower back and nausea rolling through her stomach like a rising tide. She blamed stress, late nights, guilt. But as the days passed, the symptoms didn't fade. She stood in her cramped bathroom one gray morning, staring down at a plastic stick on the sink. Two pink lines. Her legs buckled beneath her. No, 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 no. The breath caught in her throat. Her vision blurred. She gripped the sink edge to keep from falling. This couldn't be happening. Not her. Not now. Not here. Alana Brooks, the disciplined one. The rule follower. The ghost in khaki. Pregnant. By an inmate. She didn't feel joy or excitement. Only panic. Blistering, bone-deep panic. Her mind spun with consequences. She could lose everything. Her job, her pension, her freedom. In some states, correctional officers found guilty of sexual misconduct with inmates faced felony charges. Prison time. She sat on the floor for hours. Phone off. Blinds closed. One hand on her stomach, the other gripping her badge. And when she finally returned to work the next day, she avoided Malik like a plague. No more glances. No more detours. She walked the halls with blinders on. But he noticed. Of course he did. He felt the shift. The way her voice trembled when she answered his questions, the way she refused to meet his eyes. And one night, he confronted her. It was nearly midnight. A quiet hallway outside the janitor's supply room. No cameras. He stepped from the shadows. Calm. Gentle. Alana, he said, what's going on? She froze. Her hands clenched. I'm just tired, she whispered. Long week. Malik reached out. Not forcefully, just enough to brush her wrist. And that was it. The dam broke. I'm pregnant, she breathed. The silence that followed stretched forever. Malik didn't shout, didn't panic. He simply stared at her, his face unreadable. Then, something changed in his eyes. You're serious? He asked quietly. Alana nodded. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm going to be a father. She looked away, tears welling in her eyes. And for a moment, just one moment, the prison disappeared. No steel bars, no cameras, no uniforms. Just two people standing in the wreckage of something impossible. He pulled her into an embrace, and she let him. She didn't want to, but her body betrayed her, leaning into the warmth, the illusion of safety. They stood like that, holding something fragile between them. But the moment wouldn't last, because in a place like Southgate, secrets don't stay buried. They claw their way out. They whisper in the walls, and someone is always watching. In a prison like Southgate, it's not the bars that keep people in line. It's not the rules or the guards or even the threat of punishment. It's the whispers. Whispers travel faster than light in places like that. And Alana Brooks, she was starting to hear them. She tried to act normal, kept her head down, volunteered for double shifts, stayed away from Malik except when absolutely necessary. But eyes were beginning to follow her. And one of them, the sharpest one, belonged to Sergeant Renee Wallace. 20 years in corrections, graying dreadlocks tied tight behind her head. A stare so cutting it could silence a rowdy cell block without a word. She had a sixth sense for when something was off. And lately, everything about Alana felt off. The sudden preference for night shifts, the looser uniforms, the way she paused too long near cell block D, Malik's unit. At first, Renee gave her the benefit of the doubt. She didn't want to believe it. But instinct is a survival tool in prison. And Renee had learned the hard way. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. So she watched. Subtly. She checked logbooks twice. Pulled hallway camera footage during her downtime. Listened to the idle gossip of inmates between chow and head count. The signs began stacking up. Deleted camera clips. Logs that showed Alana stationed alone in restricted zones. Brief audio snippets from handheld radios that captured low voices in places they shouldn't have been. And then she had enough. One Thursday morning, Renee caught Alana alone in the break room. Just coffee, small talk, a calm morning. But there was something in Renee's voice that made the air go cold. You all right, Brooks? She asked, casually sipping her coffee. Alana nodded too quickly. Just tired, not sleeping much. Renee stared at her, unblinking. You pregnant? The question landed like a slap. Alana froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came. I've had 3 kids, Renee said, her voice low. I know what it looks like. You're holding your back, wearing loose shirts. That ain't fatigue, honey. That's fear. The break room went still. Renee leaned forward. I don't know what's going on with you, but if you're in trouble, you need to speak up now, before someone else does it for you. Alana didn't reply. She just turned and walked out, stiff and silent, her heart pounding loud enough to drown out the footsteps echoing behind her. That night, she called out sick. She curled on her apartment floor, blinds drawn, hands trembling. She couldn't breathe, couldn't eat, couldn't stop hearing Renee's voice. You pregnant? She hadn't even told her own sister. Had no plan. No escape. Only this baby and a rising dread that she'd already gone too far. Back inside Southgate, Renee kept digging. She wasn't after a scandal. She was after the truth. And the more she found, the worse it looked. By Friday, she'd assembled a small manila envelope. Inside, log entries, surveillance d'instant, a partial radio recording, and a timeline that made too much sense. But she hadn't turned it in yet. Renee wasn't cruel. She wanted to give Alana a chance. One last chance to walk away, to request a transfer, to end it quietly before it all exploded. But Alana found the envelope first. She spotted it in Renee's locker during an overnight shift, tucked behind a stack of folders. Her own name scrawled on the outside. Inside, her entire secret exposed. And just like that, everything changed. She didn't sleep that night, didn't shower, didn't eat. All she could see was that envelope, the camera logs, the evidence, and the promise of everything crashing down. Renee had offered her mercy, a warning, but warnings come with a clock, and time was running out. Friday nights at Southgate Correctional Facility were supposed to be quiet. Most of the inmates were already locked in, the admin staff gone, and the halls left to skeleton crews and flickering lights. But that night, something was different. Officer Alana Brooks walked into the facility like she always did, back straight, uniform pressed, eyes focused. But inside, she was unraveling. Her stomach, now 6 months swollen, was tightly bound under a compression band. Her hands wouldn't stop sweating. And in her locker, folded neatly between her spare gloves, was the manila envelope. Sergeant Renee Wallace's envelope. The one that held her entire future in a few sheets of damning evidence. Surveillance gaps, audio whispers, location logs, and her name, circled in red again and again. Renee hadn't turned it in yet. She'd offered Alana time, but time was up. Around 11 p.m., Renee stayed behind in the surveillance office, her usual late-night haunt. She sat in front of the monitor banks, clicking through security feeds, reviewing footage from earlier that week. She didn't hear the footsteps, didn't hear the door click shut. Alana stood in the doorway, quiet, unmoving, a shadow with tear-glossed eyes and a look that flickered between pleading and something far darker. Renee didn't even turn around. You took it, she said calmly. The envelope. I figured. Alana stepped forward, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry. Renee sighed, finally turning in her chair to face her. Girl, you had options. I was giving you a chance to make this right. It's not that simple, Alana said, her voice cracking. You think I don't know what it's like to fall for the wrong man? Renee said, standing now, her glare sharp but her tone surprisingly soft. But this? You put everything at risk. The moment the truth comes out, every inmate you've ever written up gets a free pass. Your whole record becomes garbage. Alana's lips trembled. I didn't plan this. Doesn't matter, Renee said, shaking her head. You've crossed the line. We don't get to love in places like this. We get to survive. Then she turned, reaching into the drawer of her desk. Not for a weapon, but for her phone. I'm done protecting you. I'm taking this to Warden Vance first thing in the morning. And that's when it happened. It wasn't planned. It wasn't logical. It was panic, pure, primal, and immediate. Alana's eyes darted across the room. Her breath came fast. Her fingers wrapped around the cold, heavy handle of a metal flashlight from the supply shelf. Don't, Renee said, seeing the shift. But it was too late. The first blow cracked across her temple. Renee stumbled, blood already running down the side of her face. The second blow came harder. The third silenced her completely. Then stillness. Only the low hum of monitors. Only Alana's ragged breathing. She dropped the flashlight. Her hands were shaking violently. Her knees buckled. She stared at the body, slumped, lifeless beside the desk chair. Blood seeping into the cracked linoleum like a dark secret that could never be washed away. For a long time, she didn't move. Then, training kicked in. Wipe the prints. Delete the footage. Stage the scene. She dragged Renee's body toward a filing cabinet, knocking it over to make it look like a fall. She placed a flashlight beside her, angled just so. She shut down the computers, pulled the external hard drive. Then she walked out, eyes forward, heart thundering, mouth dry. To the outside world, it would look like a tragic accident. A loyal sergeant, working late. A slip, a blunt force injury. No signs of foul play. The warden wouldn't question it. Southgate had a reputation to protect. But inside those walls, inside Alana, a deadly truth had just been buried. And not even Malik Carter knew what she had done. 3 days after Sergeant Renee Wallace was pronounced dead, Detective Camille Drake arrived at Southgate. She didn't wear a flashy badge. She didn't bark orders. She didn't need to. Camille was the kind of investigator who spoke quietly and made people spill their secrets without even realizing they were doing it. She'd worked dozens of prison-related deaths across the Southeast, overdoses, assaults, even staged suicides, but something about this one, it stank. No proper scene photos. No chain of custody on the surveillance hard drive. The body had already been cremated per family wishes. And worst of all, no autopsy had been requested. Convenient, Camille muttered as she flipped through the sparse incident report. The official cause, accidental fall. The time of death, 11:07 p.m. The responding officer, Alana Brooks. That name circled like a storm cloud in Camille's notebook. She called Alana in for questioning. The woman who sat across from her wasn't trembling, wasn't stuttering. Too calm, too rehearsed. I found her near the cabinet, Alana said, her tone even. It looked like she slipped. It didn't touch anything? Camille asked, watching closely. No, ma'am. But Camille saw it. The faint red mark across Alana's wrist, like a healing bruise. She didn't comment. Not yet. Instead, she asked for surveillance footage. That's when things got strange. The digital archive for the East Wing had been wiped. The backup drive? Corrupted, claimed the technician. Camille's eyes narrowed. She didn't accuse anyone. She just made notes. Deliberate deletion. Possible obstruction. Follow-up on system access logs. She reviewed Alana's schedule over the last few months. And something stood out. Overnight shifts. Over and over. Often coinciding with Malik Carter's housing block. She requested to speak with inmates, under the guise of wellness checks. Most offered nothing. But one younger man muttered something as she stood to leave. Carter's been acting weird, he said quietly. Ain't been the same since they took Sergeant Wallace out of here. Camille paused. What do you mean? He just stopped talking, stopped smiling, like someone died twice. That night, in her motel room, Camille spread her notes across the bed. Shift logs, redacted reports, timestamps, Alana Brooks' personnel file, and one name kept floating to the top, Alana. But while Camille pieced together the truth with logic and ink, something darker was building inside Southgate. Malik Carter felt it first. At lunch, his usual seat was taken deliberately. Another inmate looked up and said, Ain't your spot no more, Romeo. He didn't fight it. He just moved on. But the air around him was different now. Thicker, tense. Word had spread. Not facts, rumors. But in prison, rumors were often just close enough to kill you. Some inmates whispered CEO banger behind his back. Others weren't so subtle. One afternoon in the yard, Tyrell, a short, volatile inmate with a mean right hook, bumped him hard. You think you special? Tyrell hissed. Midnight visits from Officer Pretty Face. Malik froze. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, his voice even. Tyrell laughed. Loud, mocking. You ain't the first to screw a guard. But keep making it messy and you'll get us all locked down. That night, Malik lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles ached. Not for himself, but for her. If this got back to the administration, or worse, to rival inmates, Alana wouldn't just lose her job. She'd lose everything, including the child. Then came the breaking point. Malik was folding laundry in the workroom when Tyrell and another inmate cornered him. "You better shut it down," Tyrell growled. Behind him, Javon, a taller guy with tattoos crawling up his neck, cracked his knuckles. Malik tried to walk past. The first punch landed in his ribs. He stumbled. The second came for his jaw. He ducked, swung back. They scuffled, fast, brutal, loud. Guards rushed in. All three were thrown into segregation. 23-hour lockdown. No visitors. No messages. No nothing. 3 days of darkness. 3 days to think. To regret. To panic. On the fourth day, a guard slipped a folded paper under Malik's door. No envelope. No signature. Just 7 shaky words. They know. Stay quiet. Don't trust anyone. The handwriting? Hers. That night, after her shift ended, Alana Brooks didn't go home. She didn't drive straight back to her apartment. She didn't stop for food. She just drove, mile after mile, down the misty back roads of rural Georgia, headlights cutting through fog, heart thudding like a war drum in her chest. She ended up in the parking lot of a rundown 24-hour diner off Route 22. And for the first time in months, maybe even years, she made a call she had been avoiding since the day she lost everything. Simone Brooks, her younger sister, 2 years apart in age, but a lifetime apart in energy. Simone was color, where Alana had gone gray. Fire, where Alana had faded into smoke. And love, loud, persistent love, in a world that had taught Alana to shrink. They hadn't spoken in over a year. Not after the divorce. Not after the silence. Not after Simone finally stopped leaving messages that never got returned. But when Alana dialed her number, Simone picked up after 2 rings. "Hello." Her voice came, groggy but alert. There was a pause. Alana stared out the window, eyes fixed on the flickering neon sign above the diner door. "Hey," she whispered. Silence. "Alana," Simone said. "Are you okay? Where are you?" "I don't know," Alana said. Her voice cracked. "I messed up, Ness. Bad." Simone sat up in bed. "Talk to me. What happened?" I can't tell you everything. Not right now," Alana whispered. "But I'm in trouble. Real trouble. And I need you to promise me something." Simone didn't hesitate. "Anything. If something happens to me," Alana said, breath catching, "I need to know the baby will have someone. That she won't be alone." There was silence on the other end. Then softly, "What baby?" Alana closed her eyes. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm pregnant." Another pause. Longer this time. Heavier. Then Simone's voice, barely more than a whisper. "Alana, whose baby is it?" "I can't say. I want to, but I can't. Not yet." There was a long silence. Not awkward, just heavy. Then finally, Simone spoke. "You're my sister. You don't have to tell me everything right now. But if that baby ever needs a home, I swear to you, I'll be there. Always." Alana broke down. No sobs. No teatrics. Just silent, shaking tears in a diner parking lot at 2 a.m. For the first time in weeks, she breathed. "Thank you," she whispered. "I hope it never comes to that. But if it does..." "I've got you," Simone interrupted. "I always have." They didn't talk long after that. Just enough to say, "I love you." Just enough for Alana to know someone still saw her as more than her mistake. Back at her apartment, as dawn broke, Alana stood in front of the bathroom mirror. One hand resting on her stomach, the other gripping the edge of the sink. She didn't know what was coming next. But now she knew something else. Her child would not be alone. The lie didn't last much longer. Not in a place like Southgate, where silence might keep you alive, but secrets always find a way to scream. It started with a corrupted hard drive, or so they claimed. But Detective Camille Drake wasn't just any investigator. She had contacts, people who owed her favors. One of them was a digital forensic tech in Atlanta who specialized in data recovery. Camille made one call, sent one request. 3 days later, she had a file in her inbox. Damaged, glitchy, but not gone. It was a muted video clip. No audio. Timestamped 11:07 p.m. The exact moment Sergeant Renee Wallace was pronounced dead. The footage flickered, then held still. Two figures in the surveillance room. One sitting, one standing. A brief scuffle, a flash of movement. Then the image froze. Camille enhanced the frame. And there she was. Alana Brooks, the one who had seemed too calm, too rehearsed, too controlled. The lie cracked open like a fault line. While Camille processed the evidence, Malik Carter was spiraling. He hadn't seen Alana in nearly 2 weeks. No hodwablances, no notes, no whispers through the food line. At first, he thought she was avoiding him, trying to protect herself. But then, he heard the rumors. That Sergeant Wallace was dead. That something had gone very wrong. And deep in his gut, he knew. He just knew. Then, one afternoon, Camille came to see him. No recorde, no cuffs, just a notebook and the kind of stare that sees through walls. Malik, she said gently, I think you know why I'm here. He didn't answer. We believe Sergeant Wallace's death was an accident, and we believe someone you care about may be involved. Malik's jaw tightened. Camille slid a printed still from the video across the table. Is this her? He stared at it. For a long time. His shoulders stiff. His eyes wet. Then he nodded. She's pregnant, he said quietly. Camille blinked. Excuse me? He looked up. Alana. She's carrying my child. And there it was, the missing piece. The motive. The fear. The desperation. Camille walked out of that room, not with triumph, but with heartbreak. She had the truth, but it was the kind that leaves no winners. That evening, she got a formal warrant to search Alana's apartment. Inside, she found everything she expected, and more. Baby items hidden in the back of the closet. A tiny onesie with the words "Little Fighter." Sonogram photos folded into a Bible. And in a locked drawer, Renee's old shift logs, with Alana's name circled in red. Again and again. The next morning, Alana Brooks was escorted mid-shift from her post. No cuffs, no scene, just silence. The kind that follows tragedy, the kind no one dares disturb. In the warden's office, Camille was waiting. We know, she said, sliding the photo forward. You were there when Renee died. Alana looked down. Her stomach was round now. Unmistakable. She didn't speak. Camille softened her tone. I've seen people lie for all kinds of reasons. Greed, power, fear. But very few kill to protect something they love. Tears welled in Alana's eyes. I didn't want to hurt her, she whispered. I just wanted to protect my baby. Camille nodded, gently. Then don't lie anymore. Don't let this child be born under a lie. And just like that, Alana confessed. To everything. The affair. The pregnancy. The killing. She didn't make excuses. She didn't try to bargain. She just broke. And for the first time in months, the truth came spilling out, raw, trembling, and soaked in guilt. It took 6 weeks for the state to press charges. Voluntary manslaughter, evidence tampering, sexual misconduct with an inmate. The headlines were ruthless. Pregnant prison guard kills fellow officer to hide affair. Love behind bars ends in bloodshed. And just like that, Alana Brooks, the rule follower, the quiet one, the ghost, became a symbol of everything the system tried to suppress. She was booked at the very facility where she once gave orders. Now, she wore an orange jumpsuit, a number, a chain around her ankles. But her real sentence wasn't written on paper. It was the shame, the kind that seeped into your bones and stayed there. Her trial drew cameras and commentators, protesters and sympathizers. Some called her a criminal. Others called her a cautionary tale. But inside that courtroom, there was only truth. Malik Carter took the stand, shackled, dressed in a crisp white shirt. His voice cracked as he spoke. I didn't plan on falling in love, he said. She treated me like I mattered, like I was human. Then came the hard question. Did you know about the death of Sergeant Renee Wallace? He swallowed hard. No, he said. Not until afterward. I swear, I didn't know. He didn't look at the jury. He looked at Alana. Pregnant, pale, silent. And his eyes said everything he couldn't put into words. Detective Camille Drake testified too, firm, precise, measured. She laid out every piece like a surgeon with a scalpel. The surveillance clip, the shift logs, the deleted files, the confession. She didn't plan to kill Sergeant Wallace, Camille told the jury. But when faced with losing everything, she made a fatal choice. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. And when the verdict came in, the room held its breath. Guilty, voluntary manslaughter, sexual misconduct, no eligibility for parole for 12 years. Alana didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just nodded, like she had already sentenced herself long before the jury did. 2 months later, in the low-risk wing of Green Valley Correctional Center, Alana went into labor. There was no hospital bed, no husband's hand to hold, just a plastic mattress and a young nurse named Camille Foster, 26, first year on the job, wide-eyed and shaking. "We don't have time to move her," the nurse shouted as Alana screamed. Her water had broken at 12:47 a.m. No doctors, no sedatives, just concrete walls, cold air, and unbearable pain. Alana bit down on her sleeve. She didn't cry out. Not here. Not in front of guards. Not in this place. Camille crouched beside her, whispering, "I got you. I'm right here. Just push when I say." And Alana pushed. Through agony. Through silence. Through fire. Then a sound. Soft. Fragile. A cry. "A girl," Camille whispered, her voice breaking. Alana stared, stunned. She couldn't move. Couldn't speak. But when they placed that baby, warm, pink reel on her chest, something inside her cracked open. She didn't sob. She didn't scream. She made a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a prayer. For 20 minutes, they let her hold her daughter. She counted the fingers, the toes. She whispered, "I'm sorry," again and again. Not for the birth, but for the world this child had been born into. Then the door opened. 2 social workers stepped in, one with a clipboard, one with a car seat. Alana's arms tightened instinctively. But Nurse Camille leaned down and said, "It's okay. They're not strangers. Your sister's already on her way." Alana nodded, lips trembling. She looked at her daughter one last time, traced the curve of her cheek with a shaking finger. "You didn't ask for this," she whispered. "But I swear to God, you were born from love, not shame." Then she let go. They named her Faith Camille Brooks. And from that day forward, she lived outside the prison walls, in a modest brick house, with a swing set out back and an aunt who gave her the world. Alana never saw her again. Only pictures. Once a year. On her birthday. But in every photo, she looked for the same thing. A smile. 5 years passed. The headlines faded. The trial was forgotten by most. But some wounds don't heal with time. Detective Camille Drake moved on to other cases, corruption, riots, even a hostage standoff in Alabama. But none of them stayed with her the way the Brooks case did. Not because of the crime, but because of the silence. She kept the file in the bottom drawer of her desk, long after the paperwork had been stamped and shelved. She kept one more thing, too, a folded crayon letter. A gift from Simone Brooks, sent to her with a small note. I thought she'd like to know her mom's not forgotten. It was written in shaky, colorful letters. "Hi, Mommy. I miss you. Aunt Simone says you love me very much. I love you, too. I like pink and butterflies. Do you like them, too? Faith." Camille never threw it away, because to her, it was the answer to a question Alana had once whispered. "Do you think she'll ever forgive me?" Camille didn't answer then. But sometimes forgiveness doesn't come in courtrooms. It comes in color crayons and butterfly stickers. Meanwhile, Alana Brooks served her sentence quietly. Inmate number 99431. She worked in the prison library, kept her head down, spoke only when spoken to. Other inmates called her the ghost. Not because she was scary, but because she was barely there. She never saw her daughter in person. But once a year, Simone sent a photo, a smile frozen in time. And once a year, Alana pressed her hand to that picture like a prayer. Faith was growing up in a small house with a swing set, a garden, and a woman who loved her enough to protect her from the truth, for now. Simone Brooks had never planned to raise a child alone. She never married, never had kids of her own, and she had once sworn she'd never step foot inside a prison again. But when the call came that night after the birth, she didn't hesitate. "She's innocent," Simone had told the judge. She didn't ask to be born into this mess. And Malik Carter? He was released 3 years after the trial. Parole, good behavior, no family waiting, no balloons, no second chances, just silence, and a backpack with everything he owned. He never tried to claim custody, never asked to visit. But every year, without fail, he sent a gift on Faith's birthday. A children's book. Inside each, a note written in neat, quiet handwriting. Be better than where you came from. You were made with love, not shame. Dad, he rented a single-room apartment above a hardware store in Monroe, Georgia. It wasn't much. A leaky faucet, a broken lamp, but it was quiet, and quiet was all he needed. He worked overnight shifts at a packaging plant. 12 hours. No complaints. Some nights, when sleep wouldn't come, he'd sit on the floor with a box of unsent letters. Dozens. All addressed to one name. Faith Camille Brooks. He didn't send them. He couldn't. But writing them made the silence bearable. One Sunday afternoon, he walked past a small park. A girl in pink overalls was chasing butterflies with a net too big for her tiny hands. For a second, he froze. From a distance, she looked just like her. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. One hand over his heart, the other clutching a small, wrapped book. Then, from the porch of a red brick house, Simone Brooks stepped outside. She saw him. Eyes met. No words. No wave. Just a quiet nod. The kind that says, I see you. I understand. But this is where the line stays. Malik nodded back. Then he placed the gift at the base of the oak tree, turned, and walked away. That night, Simone opened the package. Another book. Another note. Sometimes the world is too big, but you're stronger than you know. And there's always someone, somewhere, who loves you more than words can say. Dad, she didn't tell Faith who it was from. She just added the book to the growing shelf. And when the little girl asked, who keeps sending me these stories? Simone simply smiled. Someone who loved your mama very, very much. Camille Drake retired 2 years later. But on quiet nights, when the house was still and the city had gone dark, she would sit by the window and reread that old case file. And sometimes, just sometimes, she whispered a line she had once been too afraid to say aloud. Maybe she won't forgive you, Alana, but maybe someday she'll understand.